You are listening to Living with ADHD and CPTSD, available on Apple, Spotify, and wherever you get your podcast. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another live stream edition of Living with ADHD and CPTSD. Today we're going to have a couple guests on the show. So far we have one. This person is from Twitter as well, Mystic Shadow. Let's just say it's going to be exciting. We're going to have a few more people on, and we're going to talk about anything to do with ADHD. So, title of today's episode is basically, let's have a seat and talk about ADHD. Welcome to the show. Glad to have you here. Let's start. If you are joining us, of course, we're on YouTube and Twitter, and we are also on my Facebook page. So, come and join us, and we'll have a good time, have some fun. And we'll talk about ADHD and learn a few things and help each other out. So, yeah, absolutely. We're going to have fun here. I'm really excited about this. ADHD. It's very mysterious. It's one of those issues that not a lot of people in this world deal with, and a lot of places we're not all the same when it comes to support and the kind of advice we can get and the healthcare and the system that there is out there for us. Some countries have it a little better than others, and some unfortunately do not. And it is one of those unfortunate situations that eventually we hope will improve. And when it does improve, more and more people will get the proper support that they need for ADHD. And it's, one of those things. And we just need to work on it and hope that more and more people will get the support that they deserve. And the more that people talk about it, the more that people are going to be less, afraid and have more courage to discuss what's going on with ADHD. If you do have a comment or a question that you would like to make and you are watching the show, you can send a tweet out to me at ADHD and CPTSD. You can also email me. There's the address on the bottom of the screen. And I will definitely try to answer, or maybe one of our other guests that when they arrive will be able to answer for us as well. Okay, so how are you doing, Mystic?
Oh, how am I doing? I was at first frustrated because I'm like, can he hear me? I don't know. Yeah. So I was playing with the settings. It was really hard.
Yeah, I realized, I'm like, oh, right, I have to actually add the person. It's not an automatic, you don't just come in. It's the first time I've had people on with me as well, so.
Oh, nice.
Usually, yeah.
Hey,
so, anyway, yeah.
We learn something new every day. Hi, Jamie.
Hi. Yeah, sorry,
I
was late. I'm really late as always.
That's okay. Hey, it's the show sometimes doesn't go as we hope, and it's always good. No big deal.
Oh, I'm happy Jamie popped in because now I feel better. It's not just me.
Oh.
Yeah, that's okay. Well, we will have another person soon. Just a matter of time. I'm sure they'll show up, so it's no big deal here. Oh, there she is. Matter of fact, I am going to add her now. Bingo.
Hi, Amber.
Hello.
Hello. All right, so here we are, four of us. So I'm expecting, I hope, a lot of people to come on the show as watching and ask some questions, and hopefully we can learn some things today. Excellent.
Hopefully, yes.
I'm sure we will. It's one of those things. Okay. Well, so the topic is basically pretty much anything you want to talk about. Whatever is on your mind. There is really no restrictions. It can be anything you feel like.
Okay, let's start this off. Can we please talk about why it takes so long for someone to get assessed for, let's say, a learning disability, ADHD, or whatever? Like why does it take so long?
Good question.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's because governments are still very behind when it comes to the realization that mental health needs more funding, more money. The support is still small, and it needs to improve. And the thing that surprises me is that countries that have a lot of income and they spend a lot of money for social services and help, they don't put enough of that towards mental health support. And considering the pandemic, that we're still in, you would have thought that they would have made more focus towards mental health, because there already are a lot of people out there that are having a hard time dealing with this.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I also think it has to do with just still, after all the research, ADHD is one of the most researched disorders. There's still so much lack of knowledge and an understanding of ADHD. There's stigma. They don't believe women. Women are one of the ones that get the most undiagnosed, because they just still don't understand ADHD in women as much as they did, because a lot of the research started with boys, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I think, I'm still struggling with a proper diagnosis. I'm only really diagnosed by my therapist and my the fourth psychiatrist that took my ADHD serious. But my clinic right now has me blocked from trying stimulants because my first evaluation came out inconclusive because I was so severely depressed and anxious. It's been a pain in the butt for me. And I also would love to get into the different. I kind of feel a little isolated because I'm in the community, because I'm taking a non-stimulant and nobody really is doing that, or that it's worked for them and it's worked for me. So it's hard for me to relate. And I feel like maybe I'm not, I don't know. But those are the kind of things that I've encountered as a woman trying to get diagnosed for ADHD properly. It's been a struggle. So, yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that the lack of knowledge and understanding has been a huge hindrance in the community. I know that recently my daughter and I moved states, and she also has ADHD. And I was so terrified to see a new doctor because so many doctors don't believe in it, don't understand it, or don't want to treat it. And so I was terrified moving, thinking that we weren't going to be able to get our medications. Luckily, it worked out for us, but it's just so misunderstood. It's so, the effects of it are so vast, and I don't think people realize that. I think that they think that it's one or two particular things, when really I can't name a facet of my life that has not been affected by ADHD.
Yeah, no, I hear you guys, and so I'm someone I'm not diagnosed. I'm self-diagnosing, but it's hard. I want to get diagnosed, but it's $2,000 to get a diagnosis, and I know my everything I do and everything I say is affected by this. Whatever I have, whether it's ADHD or sensory processing disorder, or maybe Asperger's or mild autism, which is something I can never really talk about. apart from the borderline, but it's like it's hard to talk about because there is that shame and stigma out there, and when you start these conversations, people just avoid and they run. It's not easy.
No.
Yeah.
Absolutely not. Gee, wow. I know everybody's different, unfortunately, as far as what they have for support and how to get a diagnosis. I talked about this, I believe, on the last time I had Jamie on, where I live, I was able to get medication before I was even diagnosed, which surprised me. I honestly didn't expect that, that ability. And then other people that I have had on, even after they got diagnosed, they were having a difficult time getting the medication because it's so strict in some countries. Like over in the United Kingdom, they have a national health service, and it's not as simple over there, which is surprising. But then at the same time, they are a little more conservative and reserved society-wise than like the United States or Canada or some other more progressive countries.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, and I find too that even in the United States, it depends on what state you're in.
Right.
I know that in Tennessee, they require you to at least yearly have a drug test to make sure that it's in your system. And when I came here, where I am now, they didn't require that. They don't. So it just varies state by state what the doctors have to do in order to get them for you.
Wow.
That's wow.
That is wow. Yeah. I know. I'm on Concerta, but I don't even have a diagnosis.
Wow.
But I've been on it for 2 years, and my psychiatrist just recently, like 6 months ago, she was like, "You have ADHD right away." I know that. I also know there's likely something else there too. My processing is off. Like I've lived with myself for 28 years, and sometimes I hate myself because of the things I do and say, and it's frustrating.
No kidding.
Wow. I'm curious to hear about your process. I mean, it's insane that, I'm just so curious, like from you, like maybe suspecting that you had ADHD. Like, I would love to hear your story, just how you ended up seeing a psychiatrist and like how you ended up getting Concerta.
Yeah. So I met my psychiatrist in the Emerge. I wasn't doing okay. It was just an awful night. I met her in the hospital in a crisis state. I was firstly diagnosed with borderline personality disorder. And then over time, as I started to gain that rapport with my psychiatrist, I started opening up to her about my trauma. And I didn't even talk about ADHD or autism or anything like that. She put it together, and she was like, she was, instead of giving, instead of the Concerta, she started me off on antidepressants. So I've been on a lot of antidepressants like sertraline, Effexor, Lexapro. I've been on a lot of those, but they haven't worked, and they've only made me more depressed and suicidal. But I have been on a lot of those medications. I'm not on them anymore. Eventually she was like, I think you have ADHD. And she gave me the ADHD medication, the Concerta, and I've been on that for 2 years. It's been working. That's what I think. It's been the only medication that has helped me not just focus, but to kind of maintain myself, if that makes any sense. I don't know how to explain it. And if I don't take it, my moods are really off. And I only have one really close friend. Her name's Jolie, and she knows when I'm not on the Concerta. My moods are off, and my behavior is really erratic. And there's been times where I've skipped my Concerta, and then people just know, and they're like, "Okay, I'm not talking to you until you take your medication."
Wow.
I know that there's some imbalance there.
I had a similar experience. I was on for all of my adult life, from the time I was 17 until today. Been on so many different antidepressants, anti-anxiety medications, and nothing ever worked long term. Like, it would work to pull me out of a dark spot.
Yeah.
But then after a certain period of time, I would just get depressed again. And that's when I was 38. So in 2020, I went to my therapist and just said, I need you to give me I need a diagnosis. What is wrong with me? Because it was clear to me by that point that it was more than just depression and anxiety. Something else has to be going on. And as soon as I said it, she was like, oh, you have ADHD, immediately, right off the top. But yeah, I had a similar experience where just, every medication I tried just didn't help.
Yeah. It's hard. I mean, and I had my friend's roommate had mentioned, he was like, oh, this person likely is undiagnosed ADHD. He had met me for the first time and he just assumed that. And then he was trying to tell me that the Concerta may not be the right medication for me. I don't know, to be honest. I've been on it for 2 years and it's kind of worked. So I don't know.
Amber, are you on ADHD medication, if I may ask?
I am. Mm-hmm. I actually got gene site testing done, where they swab your cheek and they send it off, and they do, they do a test, and it tells you what medications will work for you and what won't.
Oh.
And so I have, along with ADHD, I have CPTSD.
Yeah.
Double depression, which is persistent depressive disorder with major depressive episodes, and anxiety and panic disorder. So, so I had a lot of trauma happen at the beginning of my 30s, and for several years, I was drowning. I mean, I could not. I was just not healthy, mentally. And come to find out, it was because I had all of these mental disorders that were just, running rampant through my brain. And I had no idea how to treat them or how to come up with coping mechanisms to make things better for myself,
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Did the insurance cover that?
I believe it covered a portion of it, but they have the company that does it has a thing where the most you have to pay out of pocket is $350.
Oh.
And then so they won't hit you with thousands of dollars in bills or whatever. But it was well worth it for me, just because I had tried so many different medications.
Yeah.
And so it was, super simple. And I also found out that I don't know a lot about this yet because she just told me about it a couple months ago, but I have something called the MTHFR gene mutation.
Haven't heard of that.
It is basically, my body does not process folic acid correctly, which can make me not absorb my medications correctly as well.
Interesting.
So yeah, and it can cause a lot of different symptoms and stuff. But like I said, I'm still learning about that because that's something new that she happened to tell me about. But and I actually, from what I have gathered, people with ADHD are actually pretty prone to that genetic mutation.
Really?
Interesting.
Yeah.
That is so. I know that we have a certain gene that gives us a predisposition for ADHD, and that's why it can be triggered at any point in your life. A trauma, a lot of the time, triggers it to become active. But I know that there is a gene difference in everybody that has ADHD. I don't know what the sign. I think maybe I learned it from your podcast, actually.
I'm still learning myself. I never knew.
Yeah, it's crazy. I think that's another thing that causes a huge barrier is like insurance coverage and just having the means to pay for it. Like you're saying, diagnosing for you is $2,000, and I'm at a point where my clinic has given me what it can give me because of their rules. They have like rules that they can only give me Strattera because my evaluation said it was inconclusive. They won't let me reevaluate for some reason. Like neurologists are the ones like in control of that company, and their view of ADHD is so different from somebody who, I don't know, they just don't. For me, their criteria is wrong, the way that they diagnose people. But anyway, so I'm at a point where I probably have to go spend that much money to get properly diagnosed. And I'll go and find something like genetic testing so I can see what medication works for me, because I do have an anxiety disorder, which is why they won't give me a stimulant. And I think Russ and I talked about that.
Yeah.
They don't want to give it to me because they think it's going to make me go, I
was really concerned about that because I, at the time of my diagnosis, I was having severe anxiety every day, 12 hours a day. Like it was off the charts. And so I was really worried about that as well. And they did put me on an anti-anxiety medicine prior to starting the stimulant. But I found that starting the stimulant helped with my anxiety an unbelievable amount. I mean, it really helped a lot.
I've heard that so much from people that started. Yeah.
The conservatives help my anxiety too.
Yeah, because there was a point where like coffee, I thought I had a coffee sensitivity. That's why I was like, there's no way I have ADHD because coffee gives me anxiety. And it really did, but it doesn't. Like I drink coffee, like I have to drink coffee. But before, it was just so weird because before, like I had to drink coffee, but I was also like I was just like a crumble of nerves. But I also wasn't diagnosed. I had no idea what was going on. I think just learning about ADHD really did a huge difference in my anxiety. And like, I'm also doing behavioral coaching with like an ADHD coach, and they're in CPT therapy, and all that stuff has helped. And I think that's why I can drink coffee and not have anxiety. So I'm like, I think I'm ready to try a stimulant. And I've had this conversation with my psychiatrist. Like, I want to try Adderall or like Vyvanse. Well, they're like, oh, well, Vyvanse is too expensive. Your insurance doesn't cover it. According to the company rules, we can't give you stimulants because of your last evaluation, and they won't evaluate you. It's just like, I have to leave, and I just don't want to even deal with like moving, and because what I have right now works for me, and I love my therapist, and I'm like, I don't want to lose that because I have some stability right now, and I don't want to make myself unstable to go and find, you know what I mean? Like I don't have the motivation enough right now to go and like, okay, I'm going to go and find this diagnosis, because what I've done so far has given me some stability and balance in my life, thankfully. So I'm just kind of chilling for now.
I've heard Vyvanse works a lot, but I'm not too sure.
And it's good for people that don't have it. Like if people for anxiety, that's why I was like, I really want to try Vyvanse. I think that would be really good for me. And even my ADHD coach says you would be a perfect candidate for Adderall because I have an attentive type. So he says that it would just help me with my focus and stuff and like everything that I struggle with, but they just won't give it to me, and it's really upsetting. I still really want to try stimulants.
I tried Vyvanse, but it made me it did the opposite of what it was supposed to do, and it made me binge eat. Like I gained like 22 pounds in 2 months.
Wow.
Oh my.
It was terrible. Really? Yeah. And I was kind of disappointed because I had heard so many good things about it that I was really excited and was like, let's do this. And so I went back on Adderall after that.
Interesting.
Wow.
I just feel like I feel like the conservatives working, yes, but then no at the same time, because I also like my behavior too. Like people don't talk about, like people think ADHD is all about like, not focusing and everything, but there's so much more to that. It's like
so much more.
It's like what about the behavioral aspect too, and like fucking up, sorry for the curse words, like that's messing up and feeling like that remorse and wanting to make it all better, but then people don't really want to like, I don't know how to explain it. Like you mess up, let's say, and I just feel like the behavioral piece needs to be talked about a lot more, but people avoid and run.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I find that with that part of it, people are always so supportive, like, oh, I support you with this, blah, 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 until something like that happens, the behavioral part of it rears its ugly head. And then suddenly it's like, oh, that wasn't ADHD. You're just making an excuse.
Right.
And,
you're
and
just
so
lazy.
Yeah, right.
I still hear that. Yeah.
That word is so triggering for me.
It's triggering for me as well. And as well as discipline. I hate that word. Oh, hi, puppy.
Or they think that we're acting out maliciously, but we're not.
Right.
We're not acting out maliciously. Like, literally, I don't even know how to explain it. We're not acting out in a bad way. We're not harming other people on purpose. We're not being spiteful.
Yeah.
I don't know what else to say. And I'm not even diagnosed. I just know something is there.
Yeah.
Do you find people that... Yeah. Do you find, like, that people that you hang around with, like, get frustrated with you?
All the time.
And you feel like they're annoyed?
Like, my close friend...
yourself?
Yeah, my close friend Jolie, she says to me all the time that I'm difficult. I'm sorry I'm difficult. I don't know how to, like, stop that. I want to do better and I want to improve, but how do I do that? That's the thing.
Right.
And I don't have any support. Like, I don't have my family or friends to, like, really help me around that. So it's hard.
Yeah.
I have my Mandelas, but that's it. How many Mandelas can I do?
I mean, we're honestly on our own because trying to... I mean, that's not a very, like, comforting thing to say, but I mean, we're kind of on our own because I'd rather spend my energy trying to understand myself and love myself than trying to make somebody else understand and love me the way that I am. Honestly, like, that is the biggest thing that I've done for myself. Like, I hear you guys saying, and, like, one of the things that, and I really thank my ADHD coach for this, because before we even went into tools and techniques, he really had to sit down with me and help me understand my ADHD and accept it, because a lot of my breakdowns and my meltdowns were about how much I grew up self-loathing severely since I was a very young child. I only started liking myself a year ago. I swear to you, a year ago I started to like myself. I don't hate myself anymore. I say I hate myself a lot less. I would say that to myself 1,000 times a day, because I literally did hate myself, and it's taking me such a lot of work to get to a point where I kind of like myself, because I took the time to, like, learn about my ADHD, learn about myself, forgive myself, accept myself how it is. And my coach had a lot to do with that, but I also had to do a lot of journaling, and, like, I'm not even, like, consistent on that. I did it, like, for a month and then I stopped, but I sometimes do, like, the positive affirmations. That's another thing that I don't do all the time, but they've worked for me. But I just really had to love and accept myself the way that I am, because me trying to get other people to love me and understand me was way harder than doing that for myself. And it just sucks, because, like, I wish it wasn't that wasn't the case. It's very lonely. It's a lonely road for us. So I really love that we have this community, because we can understand each other. Like, hey, you're not alone. Like, I also feel like that. When you said that you hate yourself, it's like, I relate to that a lot, because I mean, I still don't like myself very much, but I don't hate myself anymore. And I know that that could be the case for everybody that also feels the same way.
Yeah. And I barely talk about my self-esteem, and I feel like ADHD, like, you have a lot of self-esteem issues. That's the one area that I, like, refuse to talk about. I'll talk about everything else, but my self-esteem. That's actually a reason why I don't want to be on camera, because I just feel, like, kind of ugly, and, like, I don't know. I just, like, I don't feel good.
Yeah. I think that's, you know, we're, especially those of us who are late diagnosed, I know personally, I grew up my whole adult life thinking that these were personal deficits, that I just kind of sucked as a person, you know. And then to find out, you know, when I found the ADHD community on Twitter, and I started reading these threads and people talking about their experiences, I was blown away. I mean, I could not believe how much of myself I saw in these threads and these stories that other people were telling, things that I would have never imagined had to do with ADHD.
Yeah.
I mean, even things as small as, like, holding your pee when you have to use the bathroom, you know.
I thought it was just me. Okay.
Yeah, no.
Like, you literally forget you have a symptom that, like, oh yeah, I forgot I had to pee. My bladder's hurting.
Right.
I forgot I felt like I was in pain.
Yeah, I get shy when they have to use the washroom, or is that just me? And they turn on the water when they got to use the washroom, and then
Yeah.
But so I think that for a lot of us, finding out that we have it and then learning about it it's a revelation, really. It's life-changing.
I love seeing people's comments where like, I felt relieved, but then I was angry. Like, why didn't anybody notice this in me before? Yes. And I was like, dude, me too. Like I went through a roller coaster of emotions, and it's like me, like, I mean, it's been 1.5 years now for me. It's been, I still go through those roller coasters. I still am like, maybe I do just suck as a person. Maybe I don't. Do you guys still feel like maybe I don't have ADHD and I just suck? Like I still have those thoughts.
Yeah, that's also like, it's tricky because like I don't even know, like that's also like a BPD thing too, and like I don't even know, like maybe that could be misdiagnosed and it's just ADHD. I don't even know what I'm saying, but like I always feel like I suck.
Yeah. It's really hard with comorbidities. It makes it really, really hard. And self-awareness is super powerful. I've kind of learned to know the difference between my depression, my anxiety, and my ADHD. I was able to learn because we first got those under control. They were like, we have to get your depression, anxiety under control. I'm like, fine. Yeah. So I did start I started on Wellbutrin and Zoloft. Those work for me. Wellbutrin worked fine for me. It didn't make me not hungry. I was eating. Yeah. I gained weight. But I had energy. Like that. When you said that, I related to that because even with Strattera, it does affect my appetite, but I've gained weight, but I also stopped working out. There's like a weird thing going on where like when I was on Wellbutrin, I had more motivation. Yeah, it's so weird. They work different, Strattera, and they're both stimulants. I started on Wellbutrin, and I was able to do more. Yeah, but with Strattera, it lets me do other things that, like at work, I'm able to like do the skills that I've learned organizing. I'm better at like organizing and doing stuff. Yeah, but my room's a freaking mess right now. I'm tired of it, but I can't do it. I just can't. Just can't do it. I don't know.
I find that. Like I never have all of my life together. There's always something that's not right. When I first started my blog, like things were going really great with the blog and I was writing like crazy, which, for someone with ADHD is difficult sometimes. Yes. And so I was like pumping out article after article and things were going great. But the rest of my life was just falling apart, I
have a question. Do you guys ever feel like you can never finish anything? Like, essentially, when we do a blog.
Oh, yeah.
I can never complete anything.
I started a blog. I wrote one blog. It's my blog. It's in the shadows, gathering dust. And then, girl, I have like an extensive history of not finishing things, which is one of the main things why I hated myself. I was the most frustrated with myself because I could never finish anything that I wanted to do. Now I can a little bit. It's improved, but it's still hard for me to finish things. I'm all over the place still. Even with ADHD meds, I'm still all over the place. I still can't finish things.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like my concern needs to be adjusted or a different medication. That's what I'm thinking right now.
Mm-hmm. Well, going back to the anger that you were talking about earlier, I had actually sat in a provider's office and said, why can't I finish anything? Like over the years, why do I have all these big dreams and these big ideas, but I can't just seem to get them off the ground? Like it doesn't make any sense. I want these things more than anything in the world, but I can't take the steps to make them happen.
You don't know what to do. You need support. And that's what most of us need.
Yeah.
But people don't want to take the time or patience.
But nobody, in all the time that I was asking these questions, nobody ever said, let's check you for ADHD, and it's such a common symptom of ADHD. Like it's a story that you hear 100 times from people who have it.
But for the common folk, they don't know that that's an ADHD thing. They still think it's just hyperactivity and like not being able to focus.
Oh, no. More than that. It really is. Like someone that I I consider him to be a close friend. He's amazing to me. We're not talking right now because I messed up. Long story. I brought it upon myself. But anyway, so one time we were having a Netflix day. He knows about my undiagnosed ADHD. He's helped me a lot. But one time we were having a Netflix day and we were talking. I was briefly talking to him about ADHD, and we were talking about the traits, and we were going over it. And he's someone, he doesn't know much about ADHD. And then the trait that says like constantly restless and moving a lot, like there's me sitting and like constantly moving on this like sofa at my place, and like that's been me all my life. That's I definitely have all the traits. Like,
see, for me, my daughter actually got diagnosed before I did.
Yeah.
And as a parent, you know, I'm doing a lot of research trying to figure out how can I help her? Like, you know, how can I help her do this? And I never really saw myself in the symptoms that I was reading on, like, you know, WebMD or, you know, medical websites until I found something about executive dysfunction. And then I was like, yes. And then I was like, wait. So when I went to my therapist about it and asked her to give me a diagnosis, she said, well, what are you thinking? Like, what do you, and I said, I don't know. But because at the time I still didn't think it was ADHD. I just knew that this executive dysfunction was something that I struggled with. And so that's when I finally went and said, hey, you know, something's definitely going on. And, you know, finding out was great because then I could identify with my daughter on a different level. Whereas before, like so many people, it was the outside behaviors that I could see that I was trying to help with. And I didn't realize that she was also dealing with executive dysfunction and, you know, big emotions and, you know, all the things that we have to deal with. So yeah, it was, it's, you know, it's so vast.
The executive dysfunction is probably one of the hardest parts of having ADHD.
So terrible.
It's very shame-inducing. You feel a lot of shame.
Yeah.
And for the longest time, I thought it was depression. I mean, they always told me I knew I was depressed and anxious since I was in middle school. I always knew that. I learned how to cope with depression and anxiety. I always came out of my episodes, but. And I always never like noted. I mean, I have really bad recall. I can't recall even my childhood. So for me, even does that happen to you guys? It's hard for you to recall. Like, I don't even remember if I was like a fidgety person, but like now I know that I'm a very fidgety person. I can't sit still, even if it's not super erratic or anything. It's like super noticeable, but my toes are literally twitching in my feet. And nobody knows that I'm like fidgeting because that's kind of my way of masking, I guess. I just subconsciously mask my fidgeting.
I'll be honest, at work. Oh, sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say at work, I do the same thing too. Like I fidget, or like, I don't know if people notice this at work, but sometimes I twirl my hair. I try not to like make myself so noticeable, but like, I don't even know what that's about, but like, I fidget a lot.
Yeah.
Like when I was doing overnights in my full-time job, I think I annoyed my coworkers because I kept moving and I was so loud during the night, but like I was so like I don't know, like I constantly I need to be kept busy, and if I'm just sitting there doing nothing, it's like, oh my god, what do I do?
It's kind of excruciating. Boredom is excruciating.
Oh,
it feels terrible, and people don't understand what that means.
I know this relief coworker, and I just like I think I annoyed her because I kept moving the chair and I kept putting it up and down, and I wasn't even aware of it until she said something, and I apologized right away. Like, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, I have body focused, repetitive motions, I guess. Yeah. Where I will chew the inside of my
me right now. I have a bump in my hand since I was a young child. That's so crazy you said that.
I hate being on camera because when I'm not talking, I'm sitting there chewing. Yeah, yeah. I can't help it. I try so hard not to do it, but it doesn't work.
I've been doing that since I was a child. I remember that, and that's crazy. That it just like realized. I'm like, oh yeah, I have been doing that since I was like, that's crazy.
I thought that was just me. Like, I do that too. But sometimes I do that. Sometimes when I'm nervous and if I just bite the inside of my mouth, or like when I don't know what to say, or when I feel awkward, that's mainly to do when I'm nervous.
Yeah, the fidgeting gets worse when I'm nervous.
Yeah,
I'm talking to someone or oh yeah, much.
Or if I'm going through something very stressful as well. Right now my whole life is upside down, and I'm going through some terrible things, and I've noticed lately that the chewing has been so bad that some nights I can't fall asleep because I can't stop chewing on the inside of my mouth, which is insane.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so one thing I'd like to talk about, I have mentioned it before, and I actually interviewed this person. I'm going to show it here. So it's an interesting... Let me just put it on here, sorry. There we go. Sorry, I'm just making sure I've got this right. There. Okay, so Tamara Rosier, she wrote a book, and I actually have a digital copy of it. And we were talking about emotional regulation when it comes to ADHD. And her description of it was really, really good. Like it was probably the best description I've heard, or explanation as well, of ADHD with emotional regulation. And it is something that I deal with. And the one thing I notice is that when you are having a problem and you're really poor when it comes to regulating your emotions, that your self-awareness drops. And you're often not noticing that you're doing a behavior, right? Like you might be upset at somebody, or you're fidgeting, or you're moving around, or you're running like crazy trying to, like you're forgetting something and you're trying to get it done because in the back of your mind, you have to go somewhere.
Or you're trying to fix the issue, but you're only making it worse.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a very good example. So when you're not regulating your emotions, and it can be very subtle, like it's not like it has to be a very clear and obvious problem with your emotion. It can be a subtle thing. And the moment it occurs, it can be so slow that by the time that you notice that you're dysregulated emotionally, the person that you're talking to, like with my girlfriend, she knows long before I do, like that I'm aware of it. And I'm struggling to learn and to be better aware of it. And I've talked to my therapist recently about it, and he's like saying that you have to learn first. You have to make a purpose of remembering and trying in the moment in situations to stop yourself in the, like, I'm not saying when you're driving, of course, but I mean, like, for example, I walk in the house from getting home from work, I have to stop right there and ground and regulate and kind of, almost like meditating to regroup emotionally so that I can move onwards on my day, because I have memories of going to my girlfriend's place and walking in and immediately going and talking to her, and I'd be talking a mile a minute, and I'd be changing the conversation or the topic and just going over and over and over. And I had no idea. It was just like, to me, it's just like a typical day. And
I ruminate a lot. Sorry.
Yeah. And it's something that if we learn to regulate our emotions, we have a better chance of noticing our symptoms and like being able to be in control more when we're dealing with it, because a lot of times we're so focused, or we're like we have that thought, you're driving home in your car and you have this thought that suddenly is stuck there, right? You're obsessing about it, and so you don't think about anything else, and you go right in and right away, and you don't say hello to anybody, or you don't do the right, you might have something you have to do when you get home, and you don't even think about it because all you're doing is obsessing about that thought. And it's extremely difficult to to notice, and you have to learn. It's not something that you can just, turn on and you're on your way.
Yeah, I don't even know what that looks like in me or how it presents. But I know ruminating, I do a lot. You mentioned ruminating, Mystic. Yeah. Oh yeah, when I'm upset about something, it's in my head obsessively. Like I can't stop thinking about it. It's gotten better with meds, but it still happens.
Yeah, me too.
I don't even know how to stop it. Like I feel like, yes, I ruminate, but I don't want to be like that. That's the thing. Like I want to change and I want to do better, but I don't know what to do. And there is support in my area. Like I live in Toronto, but I don't know. I'm scared to access the support alone because of my experiences.
Yeah.
Right.
And because I'm also in the field too, so it's I think it's a conflict of interest. I don't even know. It's kind of messed up.
Well, there is one way. The one thing that I've been taught, and I'm slowly learning how to do it, is you have to be more in tune with yourself. We were talking, and he was purposefully interrupting me so that I would notice things. I would notice how I'm feeling physically, mentally, feeling my surroundings. It was actually fun because I had to think, and then I had to actually observe where I am and what I'm feeling, and it's something that you have to over and over do, and it teaches you how to be present, and it teaches you to notice your surroundings and to be more mindful, and that is key, is learning how to notice where you are and what you're doing and what you're feeling.
Mm-hmm. And sometimes I've realized that sometimes what I say can trigger others, and I don't realize that until those people have those conversations with me. I'm not even realizing that, and I don't want to trigger others. I really don't.
Mm-hmm.
No, absolutely not.
Yeah, that's one thing that was hard for me, was that I don't know why, but whenever I first started hearing about emotional dysregulation, I would think of anger, people who can't control their anger. And I'd be like, but I don't really do that. But I can't control my weepiness sometimes as well. So, I will get, I'll cry a lot. I just cry a lot.
Right.
I cry a lot too.
Yeah, it's all part of emotional regulation. Mm-hmm. That is, and the interesting thing, I honestly wish, one thing I would recommend is to listen to that particular podcast, mm-hmm. because it is a really, you'll see yourself, her understanding of it, because she has it herself. So it's not like she's just teaching it. She has an ADHD diagnosis as well.
Yeah.
And she knows her thing. It is incredible how well she was able to explain and give examples and metaphorically, when you listen to it and you get through to the end, you suddenly you have this understanding that you didn't before, and then you realize, and the problem is because the doctors don't, it's not part of the diagnosis. They're not going to go, oh, you're emotionally dysregulated. Well, you might have ADHD. That's not something that they're going to look at. Mm-hmm. So if you notice it, and that's the thing, is that once you understand emotional regulation in its relationship to ADHD, you soon realize that it has a big deal. It has a big part of it. Mm-hmm. Because our brains, the way our brains are configured, it does affect it.
Hi. I put my camera on.
I'm so proud of you.
Yes. I did it, okay?
I love that.
Yeah.
I did it.
Look at us growing. Yeah. We're just growing like crazy right now.
Good job.
I did it.
I love it.
Yeah. But yeah, you soon learn that emotional regulation has a large part in it, because because of the fact that our brains aren't developed as a neurotypical brain, the area that our emotions kind of play more into it, because we can't stop it. Like, we can't go in, like a neurotypical can immediately go, okay, this isn't feeling right. I need to calm down. I need to stop. I need to walk away. Whereas it takes over, and it's really difficult, and it plays into all our other symptoms, which is why we do things without thinking or be impulsive, right?
The impulsiveness, yes,
exactly. And it's extremely strong.
Is that where RSD comes in? Is that part of RSD? Like, what is it?
I think
rejection.
Rejection sensitive dysphoria. Absolutely. Well, in the fact that we really move through life being criticized constantly for things that we didn't mean to do, or being told that we aren't trying when we're trying our absolute hardest. And so I think that has a lot to do with rejection sensitive dysphoria as well, that we get that so often that it's impossible not to let it affect you,
Yeah.
I was
sorry.
I was going to say, speaking of RSD, I was bullied all of my life, and like in school and everything, and even by my own parents. But I was bullied, and it stems a little bit from that, I think, and also just from being like awkward and like not getting things. Like when I went to school, people thought I was someone that could just like maintain themselves and just go to school without anything. But I had a list growing up. Right now, I don't have that anymore. I went to speech therapy for a few years. There's still some words I can't pronounce. And to this day, I like pretend I can I replace words by words I can pronounce. It's kind of messed up.
Right.
And I just pretend I have everything together. It's the masking, really. But the RSD definitely applies to me. And that's why I threw in the bullying into it too, because I feel like it somewhat relates.
We're really kind of receptive to bullying. I got bullied in middle school a lot, and that hurt my self-esteem a lot.
I was never bullied, but I look back on it now, and the reason that I was never bullied was because I had a really particular mask that I wore, which was the funny girl. And as long as people were laughing at me, they weren't picking on me. So I was constantly, I mean, I would do anything for a laugh. It like pratfalls and, just anything to make people laugh. But also at the same time, like, I always knew that I was the person in my friend group that they could all do without. If that makes sense. Like, we were all friends, but I also understood that, like, if I wasn't there anymore, they probably wouldn't have cared that much,
I wasn't like the funny type of person in school, but I wanted to be liked. So I would I don't really talk about this, to be honest. I would try to I think I acted out a little bit like a rebel would kind of do, essentially. Just so I can have friends, but it never really worked. I didn't really have any friends.
I think a lot of us, that's something that just automatically happens, just doing things to be liked. We have that people pleasing. I hear that a lot being mentioned around ADHD, and I definitely have dealt with that. I'm getting better at it, but it's still the validation, the needing the validation that we didn't get at all, because we were just never I always knew that I was a misunderstood child. I didn't understand why I was always getting in trouble, and I'm like, I'm not even doing anything wrong. Like, that person's so much worse than I am. Like, how come I'm always getting in trouble or being scolded about something? And I never understood. I didn't feel like a bad child.
Like, that's a perfect way to put it too, is that it's just hands down, it's just misunderstanding. It's just not understanding a person. And I think that when you have ADHD, it's impossible to live in this world without being traumatized. And then the symptoms of trauma kind of commingle with the symptoms of ADHD, and it can be sometimes kind of hard to separate them and to figure out what is trauma and what is ADHD. I have issues with that as well. But it also goes back to like the people pleasing and the wanting to be loved. Like my childhood was verbally abusive, and so I never really learned how to be loved the right way, and that led to me marrying a man who treated me exactly how my parents treated me. And it wasn't until many years into that I realized, like, you know, this is abusive. Like, I'm in an, in another abusive situation, which compounded the trauma, and then you're right back to square one. You know, it's really difficult to deal with. I did do EMDR. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of that.
I have heard of it. Yeah. I want to try it.
It's fun.
Amazing.
It is.
It's unbelievable how well it works. Like, I don't understand the science behind it, but it is unbelievable how well it works. It's very. I processed like up until my teen years, and then I stopped. And so I just recently went back to therapy and told my therapist, like, soon I want to get started again on the adult stuff, because for probably a year and a half after I did EMDR, I did not have any, no real serious anxiety. Like, it helped with my anxiety so much.
Wow. Maybe I'll look into that. I'm just like, I'm kind of taking notes at the same time. Yeah. Because all of this is very new to me.
Absolutely.
So maybe I'll look into that.
Okay. Well, here's a question that I'm curious about your answers. Do you think, and especially if at the stage of being an infant, you know, your first 5 years, as they say, when your mind learns the most and develops the most out of your before your adult life, if you are repeatedly being abused or neglected, or, you know, like whether it's mentally or physically, or you're just not getting your needs met as a child because maybe your parents are working all the time, or they, you know, like, or they take you to a daycare, and the daycare is traumatizing to the child. Do you think that the ADHD that we develop or we have may actually be because of our trauma? I know there's been a lot of research on that has been out there saying that there are children who were being misdiagnosed with ADHD, and then in an adult life they suddenly realized that they had trauma back in their childhood, because the location in the brain is the same in the development. Like, because when you're having childhood trauma, your brain's change, like it changes the way it develops, because you're not getting the proper support, right? Like the chemical that they say that you feel when you're always stressed and you're
cortisol.
In danger. Cortisol. When you're constantly feeling cortisol, and you're always scared and you're traumatized, that your brain, it's unhealthy for the brain, and it can cause premature death. Like it's known to be doing that. So my question to you is, do you think that if a lot of people out there who were diagnosed with ADHD in their childhood years maybe actually had CPTSD? And
for me, so the first 7 years of my life were very safe and loving, and I was surrounded by family that cared for me and that accepted me and nurtured me. When I was 7, a step parent entered the equation, and that step parent wasn't a fan. And unfortunately, what I know now are ADHD symptoms made that even worse, and kind of gave her an excuse to continue treating me poorly. So I really don't know what came first. I'm sorry, my child is behind me running around. I really don't know what came first, to be honest. I think back, as far as I can remember, I've always been super empathetic and kind of like I was a happy child, like I was a happy, fun child, but there was always kind of melancholy inside of me that was a little bit sad, you know?
Right.
So it's hard to say for me what came first and why.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. For me, I feel like it was meant for me to have ADHD because it runs in my family pretty deeply. My whole family has. My dad, my mom, my brother, we all have ADHD. I have cousins and uncles that have ADHD, undiagnosed, all of them, except for one of my aunts that I just found out. I also had a traumatic life. I had trauma as early as 3 years old. And I was also, when I was born, I had a very traumatic birth. And I was born with my umbilical cord around my neck. So I had like a little bit period of time where I had like a oxygen cut off, which I've heard that can be a leading cause for ADHD as a symptom. So it's like I had every chance to get ADHD. So I don't know if like all of those events made my ADHD worse, because I do feel like I have a pretty significant symptoms compared to sometimes I feel like, man, my ADHD seems so much. I encounter other people that I know have ADHD but are like pretty stable and like don't care about having it, or like don't care about getting diagnosed like I did. And I'm like, how come?
I don't know how they're stable. Like, I'm struggling. Sorry, keep going.
I know. It's like, I was just talking to a friend yesterday and I was asking specific questions that weren't me. I was kind of just asking questions in a different way to see if he had similar. And I was like, oh my God, he has ADHD, but like he's figured out life. And I told him like, dude, you figured out life. He was like, what do you mean? I don't have this. And I couldn't tell him like, oh, it's because I think you have ADHD. And sometimes I just want to be like, you have ADHD to people, but I know that that's not good. Like, that's just an intrusive thought that I have. I'm like, you have ADHD, but I can't tell people because it's not okay to do that.
I think sometimes I see it everywhere. Like, I feel like I see ADHD everywhere.
Yeah.
And,
the neurotypicals are the minority, really.
Right.
Yeah, run the world, and then if you're going to stay your world, you're screwed.
Yeah. But I feel like for my teens and a lot of my 20s, I had really superficial friendships. Again, like we were saying earlier, where I was like just trying to fit in and trying to wear certain clothes or do certain things that helped me fit in with people. And then when I was in my mid-20s, I met this big group of women who were unbelievable. And they accepted me in a way that no one had ever accepted me. Like, completely who I was, and it gave me this freedom to be me even more. The more that they accepted me, it was really amazing. But then when I found out that I had ADHD and started learning about it, I realized that most of those women also have ADHD.
Right. Wow.
We gravitate to each other somehow.
Yeah.
You just find your people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you think there are more people out there that have ADHD than what we know?
Absolutely.
Oh,
Yeah.
for sure.
I encounter them all the time.
It's estimated that 80% of adults with ADHD don't know they have it. 80%.
Wow.
Yeah.
I think that's something from a very young age, and whether or not it's ADHD or like sensory processing disorder, like I know it's something to do with my processing, because I'm not like all there sometimes. And when someone's trying to explain something to me, I pretend I get it, and I'm just like, okay, sure, but it doesn't mean I'll get it.
I do that. I was just saying that to my friend yesterday. Sometimes I'm like smile and wave, like, yeah, I know. And I don't have, I'm like, what are they talking about? It's hard for me to understand. And I always blame it on I'm ESL, like I'm a Latina. So I was first brought up speaking Spanish and bilingual. So my brain has a lot of confusion all the time because I get stuck between English and Spanish. I always blame it on that, but maybe I also have some sort of processing disorder because sometimes it's hard for me to understand. Even reading, I have a hard time reading. I can't read unless I'm hearing it. I only do audiobooks. I'm going to see if that book is on audio, as I can't read books, physical books, unless I have
I don't know.
It's really hard for me to read. I don't know if that's something that you guys experience with reading.
I actually have been a really voracious reader for all of my life. And then in 2020, my ADHD kind of turned up a little bit. And I have not been able to read a book fully. I've started 100, but I've never been able to get through one. And it's been really sad for me because reading was always such an escape. And it was, growing up, it was a way for me to get out of my painful world and into someone else's. Yeah. And I feel like it gave me a lot of empathy reading about other people's stories and whatnot. Yeah. But I actually just read my first book a couple of weekends ago, and I was so excited that I finally finished a book. I was ecstatic. But I understand where, like my daughter, I can't get her to read for anything. And I mean, she's 10, so it's important for her right now to be reading as much as she can. And so I'm constantly going to the bookstore with her and trying to help her pick out things that I think that she'll like or will, grab her interest or whatever. But it is really difficult for people with ADHD, I think.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, audiobooks are amazing. I think audiobooks would be life-changing for her, and my noise-canceling headphones are the only way that I can actually sit down and read an article.
Noise-canceling headphones are the best thing that ever
life-saving. Yes. It's how I can function as a human, honestly.
I just recently moved in with my mom, and sometimes she'll be like, "Why do you still have your headphones on?" And I'm like, I don't know how to explain this except for that it, blunts the rest of the world so that I can sort of focus. I can still hear my kid and know what's going on with her, but I'm able to focus better with that. It just puts me in a different zone.
I can focus. I didn't realize how much noise affected my brain. I had no idea until I tried noise canceling headphones, and I'm like, whoa, my brain just works different. I don't know how to explain it.
Definitely help, the noise cancellation earphones. Recently, I was doing my training for standard first aid and CPR last week, and I was doing that training after you have your exam, and after the exam I was the last one to finish. This always happens, but it takes me there was 30 questions, and reading each question, it's kind of frustrating because I have to read each question 30 times or more. Reason why I'm bringing this in, I feel like these noise cancellation earphones would be would have been helpful in that moment, because even during the exam, the participants in the CPR course thing, they were just they were talking, and they were asking questions to the instructor, and I'm just in my head, shut up, because I was getting so frustrated. I don't mean to use that word shut up, but sometimes you get frustrated when you're trying to process things, and then you can't process it because people are talking, and you need the whole room to be silent. I don't know if you guys experience that too, but I experienced that.
I find that noise affects me differently. It depends on what mood I'm in. It depends on what I'm trying to focus on. It depends on the noise that's happening. I can sit with heavy metal blaring at top volume in my headphones and focus fine, but the sound of the clock ticking will distract me for days. So it's really,
I hate those clocks.
Yeah.
Since I was a child, I hated them.
Yeah.
And you know what? I did that CPR exam and I failed it. How long did the test take me? 30 questions. I swear I had to read over and out loud in my head. I had to mutter out loud the questions. It was just so sad, but I failed it the first time. The instructor, I swear, I think she felt sorry for me. I don't even know. And she was like, I'm going to give you another chance. And she circled the questions I got wrong. I felt so stupid though. She passed me in the end. I just felt really stupid. Like I know the answers. It's just like my processing too. And like all my life growing up, like doctors have diagnosed me with like sensory processing disorder or even like oppositional defiant disorder. Like I don't even know, but I never sorry, they didn't officially diagnose me, but they just like stated I had that.
Mm-hmm.
I never like got an official diagnosis other than the borderline, which is kind of fucked up.
Yeah.
I got diagnosed with bipolar disorder before I got diagnosed with ADHD many years when I was in my 20s. And actually several years later I had another doctor say, no, that was a misdiagnosis, but you just have anxiety and depression, and left it at that.
Yep.
But again, I think with the bipolar disorder diagnosis, it's because I have really low lows.
Yeah.
Then I have times where I seem manic, but what that actually is hyperfocus. Like I get things done and I get big ideas and make huge plans and, you know, all these grand things. And, but it wouldn't last, you know, like, with bipolar disorder, a manic episode will last for days or weeks.
Yeah.
That wouldn't be the case with me. I would wake up in the morning and be like, I'm going to conquer the world. I'm going to do everything that there ever was to do. And I'm going to be perfect at it. And it's going to be great. And then by the evening, I would be like, I want to die and hate my life. And, you know, it was just very rapid. You know, it was the change was, you know, it was stark, and that was why they felt like it might be bipolar disorder.
Makes sense. I call those delusional. No, what do I call them? Delusions of grandeur for myself, especially when I'm in my car on my way home from work. I have these crazy ideas. I'm going to do all of these things, and I do absolutely nothing, and then I feel like crap about myself. A vicious cycle. I relate to that a lot.
Absolutely, it is. It really is. And I've always had really big dreams. Like, I've done a lot of really cool things because of those dreams. Like when I was 17, I started wrestling, like the fake kind of wrestling. And like, I was certain that I was going to be like on the WWE and I was going to be famous for wrestling. And then that kind of segued into acting, and I got an agent and, you know, did the whole acting thing for a while. And I was positive. I mean, I was 100% positive that I was going to be a really successful actress. But it was like, I would, take one step forward and then take two steps back. You know, I could never make headway on it. And I could never understand why. Why didn't I stick with these things that I wanted so desperately, you know?
Yeah.
Because you got bored. You're like, okay, I have a question. When we have those moments, is it that we're getting bored, or is it that we hit a wall where like when things become difficult, or like one of the big things in the questionnaires are like you avoid things with a lot of effort, which is me. That I really relate to that. I don't know if it's like, what is it? Like, is it I'm bored? Is it that because when things get too difficult, I give up because I'm like, it's too much effort, I want to avoid it? Or like, I never know what it is and I've gone through that a lot, but I don't know, like, what is it?
Yeah.
I think with me, the fear of failure holds me back because
perfectionism.
Right.
Yes.
I put so much stock into it. And I think if I don't do this, then I'm never going to do anything with my life. Like if this doesn't become a thing.
All or nothing thinking.
Yes. Yeah. And so I'm afraid to fully put myself out there because then if it doesn't work out, then what do I do next? You know?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that difficulty part, like, you know, if it's something that some of it has to do with not enjoying it, like getting no satisfaction out of the task that you're working on. Some of it definitely, there's that fear factor where you are you're scared of the failure, and you have that perfectionist. A lot of us want to be perfect and do everything perfect, and we're particular. If we're not getting enjoyment out of it, it takes nothing for us to quit and to stop, because if we don't get that dopamine, if we're not feeling excitement about it, or that it's fun, or that it feels good, we're gonna quit real fast. It takes nothing, and
it takes nothing. Yeah.
It's almost like I know for me, like frustration is like a huge thing of it, and like when I'm frustrated and I can't understand something, like I've been finding myself getting like really angry. So whether that's like throwing my phone across the room, my phone is literally like damaged. Like I put the new phone right now. Even my friends will say that. Like they've seen my phone and it's literally like all messed up because you couldn't read it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Guys, I actually am going to have to drop off. But thank you so much for having me. And
Absolutely.
I would really love to come on and do it again. It's been fun.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Amber, you're also welcome on my podcast. Sorry, Russ, to plug myself in. Whenever I start again.
Okay, yeah, I definitely will. Definitely. So you guys have a good night.
All right, perfect.
So nice to meet you, Amber.
Nice to meet you.
Bye, Amber. All right, everybody, that was Amber. Okay, so it's 3 now. All right. So, wow.
That was really good conversation.
Absolutely.
I think we've wow. And thank you so much, Russ, for letting me be a part of this.
Oh, you're welcome. Well, I hope you enjoyed this, Mystic. I realize that it was, you're going through a lot and you're learning about these things, and I think it's your first time really speaking out about what you're going through.
That's huge.
Yeah.
I'm going to speak about, and I'll be honest, like this year, I've only just came across the term neurodivergent, and I never even knew Twitter had like an ADHD community on it. And then a few people I follow, they started saying something like, "Oh, I think you have mild autism," and like I even see that myself, but it's not something I would ever like admit. But I know I have it. That's the thing. Like maybe it could be like Asperger's. I don't even know, but I know I have like some of the traits.
Yeah.
I don't even know like where to begin. And I had a friend take me to like this ADHD clinic, and I'm still waiting on this referral to come back. So wish me luck with that. I don't really know what to expect. And then
well, I think the key is to maintain a positive atmosphere or feeling, because if you know that you're making progress, or you're taking the steps to getting to where you want to be, that it might take some time. We don't live in a society right now where you can walk into the doctor's office and they perform tests, and in a half an hour what's going on. They don't even have the technology to do anything quite like that yet, but we have to stay positive, and a lot of times we have to kind of stick up for ourselves, because there's a lot of people out there that just don't get what is happening, and there's no way for them to really experience it. There's nothing we can't say, here, put this on and see what ADHD is like. There's just no way. And until they know themselves, which is basically impossible, a lot of people are going to have these, false expectations, or they're going to have a stigma where they believe it's ADHD has certain traits, or we should just be thankful that we don't live 100 years ago. I think we'd be in the psych ward instead of chatting on a live stream here.
That's true.
And we've made progress, and hopefully, in a few years, there'll be a lot more support and understanding, and we won't have to necessarily be afraid of voicing, or speaking to people about it and saying, yeah, I suffer from ADHD, or I have trauma, or, like, if you can do that and not feel afraid that they're going to completely change how they think about you or feel about you, which is I'm sure a lot of people go through.
Yeah.
Like, I actually have a really quick story here. Oh, I think it was early 2000s, and I was chatting online with a girl who was roughly the same age as me, and we met, and she warned me ahead of time that she had ADHD, and it wasn't like, compared to us, like, I'm pretty mild. I'm not severe. Like, I know there's some people who have pretty severe ADHD, and it was my first example of knowing what ADHD was about. And she literally, it almost was like there was short circuits, like wires all over the place that were really short circuiting, because she couldn't sit still. She was always moving around, always looking at stuff, always fidgeting, moving. And it was alarming, because I'd never known anybody like that before. Mm-hmm. And I think back to, this was still when mental health wasn't exactly discussed very much. Like, it was still pretty quiet and relatively new. It makes me wonder what she must have gone through, like, because people would be around, and I can just imagine her hanging out with people and noticing that she just doesn't, she's always moving around and always distracted, always, like, oh, it must have been, and it probably still is, pretty rough for someone who has that severe of a diagnosis. I honestly get it,
I see that I work with kids as well, and a lot of my kids have ADHD, autism, and learning disabilities. And unfortunately, you can't talk to their parents about it or say, "Hey, I think your kid might have this." All I can do is just try to be patient and understanding. Yeah. And I really do have a gap of knowledge in how to support kids with different disabilities like that, because I see them, I just try to not shame them and make him feel bad. I see other staff making comments, and I just have a lot of compassion for them, because I'm like, I understand, like, I know. And I have a kid that's really, really hyperactive, and I just hearing him say, like, I have the wiggles. I don't even know where he got that, but I'm like, I understand what you're saying. And it's just his way to express how he's feeling. And that's just the ADHD in him, and I don't know if he has support or anything. I just need to find ways to really support those children. And it just breaks my heart, because they're Hispanic, they're minorities, and I just know their parents are not really accepting of mental health. My parents aren't, and it's just like, I just pray that they don't have a hard life like I did. And I feel so bad, because I'm like, I just hope that they don't struggle as much. I just hope that they find support. I hope at one point someone says, "Hey, I think they have ADHD. Let's give them the support that they need."
Yeah,
absolutely.
And then it's also like, we gotta touch on, like, those, like, not just like whether or not you have whether or not your self-diagnosis. Sorry, I can't speak. So whether or not you have like whether or not you're self-diagnosing, or you actually have like a learning disability or like whatever, right? We also need to touch on the part where, like, some of us have supports and some of us don't.
Yes.
Yeah.
Totally.
That makes a big difference.
Yeah.
When
if you're by yourself, yeah. Ugh.
When you have support, like, it's easier to reach out and to get assessed, and it's easier. It's just easier to reach out, but when you don't have support, because of the shame and stigma, you don't have that courage or motivation to even reach out. And people have all of these expectations, and they're like, "Oh, you can still reach out." No, I really can't. I'm scared.
Yeah. And even when you do, you just don't, you get comments or like, you know what, never mind.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know it's hard, and the best thing, and I get that it's not an easy thing to do, but the best thing when somebody is not accepting, or they're making inappropriate comments, or their knowledge is completely wrong, is to just stop. Like not associating with those people is the best thing for us. Like, and if it's unfortunately, if it's a friend or if it's a family member that you've known for a very long time, it is hard to just stop and let them go, because for most of your life you've trusted them, and you always thought that they were there, that they would understand, they would know what you're going through, or they would be, compassionate and show empathy towards you. And then when they don't, it's shocking and it's sad.
The RSD kicks in, and it's all it's a vicious cycle. Yeah.
And you gotta be strong. And I hate to say it, but there's nothing wrong with feeling upset and angry and sad about it. We can't hide that. We got to be able to allow that to in our heads, right? Like to think about it.
We have to feel what we feel. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. If we hide what we're thinking and feeling, we're just not going to make any progress, and we're going to continue to feel worse.
And it's not easy. Like for me, it's been a very lonely road. I mean, for Mental Health Awareness Month this year was the first time that I finally had the courage to talk about ADHD. I talk about anxiety and depression, no problem, but I had a lot of shame about ADHD, mostly because I didn't have an official diagnosis. I was still figuring out my medication. I needed a lot of validation about my diagnosis, and so I dealt with it all alone by myself. And honestly, the best thing that I did for myself is to learn about it. Learn about ADHD. And I just tweeted that early this morning. If you learn about ADHD and you have ADHD, you learn yourself. You get to know yourself. And I just had to do a lot of self-education. And thankfully, it became a hyper-focus thing for me. When I first found out I had ADHD, I binged information like crazy. Like, I was obsessed with ADHD information. I was watching videos, TikToks, everything that I could find. And that was the best thing that I did for myself, because it helped. And honestly, therapy. And I mean, if you have the ability to do that, but there's so many free resources out there. It's just about going to look for yourself. But you do have to have the right motivation. Not all of us have the motivation to go look at, because my brother has ADHD and he doesn't have the same motivation that I did when I first found out. He doesn't have the motivation to, and it's very frustrating for me to not feel frustrated with him, because like I see him struggling and I'm like, what the reason is, and like, let me help you. But it's just, I don't know. It's that's also frustrating. It's just not everybody will have the motivation. But if you do find it, or you just have to, like, I also joke with myself, like, I have to seduce my brain to do things. That's something that I'm learning. Like, if I want to get myself to do something that I want to do, I have to trick my brain. I have to seduce it. I have to make it like, hey, this is a good thing. You do want to do this. And I have to like do a little bit of foreplay with my brain to get myself to do something. It's kind of weird, but as I'm learning about myself, I learned that that's what I have to do to get myself to do things that I want to do. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah.
That's interesting. That would be a good method. I hope.
Yeah, it's a new thing I'm trying out.
Try that. Yeah.
It's I'm still figuring it out, and then once I figure it out, I will probably try to make a video about it. But we'll see if that happens.
Or just Twitter?
Huh?
Do you have a YouTube channel or just Twitter?
I do have a YouTube channel. I have a podcast. I have a TikTok. I have my page, Jamie Farrells, on Twitter. I'm doing more video TikToks right now. I'm doing a lot of makeup stuff right now. I'm all over the place with my content, to be honest. This is very ADHD. I am still figuring out how to do content. I actually asked, and I don't know. I mean, obviously, I really admire Russ because he's been so consistent, and I'm honestly really proud. And I'm just like, oh, Russ, look at you, like doing all these things. You're interviewing all these great people, and I'm like, one day I'm gonna be like Russ. I'm gonna be consistent with my content because my content is all over the place. I haven't figured that part out yet.
Yeah, it can be difficult sometimes because I have to learn to limit what I'm doing day to day, especially when it comes time to try and make a new episode, because you can so easily get caught up in something that you want to do that's fun. Like there are things that if I had a choice, I would do the same thing all the time. But it's when you have more than one person living in the same place, you can't just do what you want. You have to sometimes adapt to make sure everybody else is taken care of too, because it's just like having a family, right? You sometimes you have to sacrifice your what you want to make sure that the house stays afloat. And making episodes is one of my passions, because I realize it's because it's self-soothing, and that's the key, right? If I was just doing this just to make money or just to get attention, I don't think I would have lasted very long, because that's never been something for me. I've never been one to want major attention. I shy away. It's the oddest thing. Like I love more being anonymous than being known. And I do it to educate and to help people rather than to try and get fame. And that's the key for me to make this work, is because it's helping me at the same time. And just helping someone, anybody out there is enough to keep me going. And when you get multiple people, you get people responding back or sending you an email and telling how listening to this podcast has done so much for them, and it's motivated them to get help, or to it's really inspiring, because you literally are doing something. Like they are listening, and they're getting a lot of help, and they're finding it motivational. And you have somebody who's an expert. Like I've had it where I had an expert who I interviewed say, you really know what you're doing, and you're doing so well, and you did such a great job. And it's like, wow, because when someone who knows what they're talking about comes and says, you're doing an amazing job, it keeps the motivation moving, because it's not like I'm just throwing out hot air and like some people out there who try to make up stuff and people believe them,
You put a lot of work into you base it off research, so I trust your content. Yeah, and I've learned so much. I mean, you're the reason I even paid attention to my trauma. I didn't even care about my trauma, or I wasn't even aware of it, or you're the reason that I'm like, whoa, actually my trauma is very active and alive and affects maybe even more than ADHD at some time.
Possibility,
and I would have not known that if I hadn't found your channel, to be honest.
Right. Well, Mystic, what do you think so far?
I think it's great listening to everyone and just to gain insight about ADHD, because it's just good to listen. It's good to listen to insight. I don't have much to say, but it's insightful, because I'm still thinking of myself too.
Yeah. See, that's all we need. Like, we're not looking, like, I'm not looking to help someone have a breakthrough, right? Like it's more to kind of help them through struggles. Like, give them something to use, to maybe that extra step to go see the doctor and then get the diagnosis, and then that's the start. Or they're scared about something because maybe it's so new to them, and they don't have a lot of support, and they use it as motivation to push forward. And there's all sorts of possible outcomes, and
not necessarily new, but yes, getting diagnosed, it can be scary, but also if someone has trauma too, and if not just trauma, but if they've been broken by the system over and over, it's not that easy to trust the system again. You
Yeah, for sure.
know what to expect, and you're afraid the same situations will happen again. So you kind of just self-isolate.
Yeah.
That's very honest.
Absolutely.
That's very valid. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
I know. I think someday it's going to be easier for people, and we need, I don't know what it's going to take, honestly, for society to open up more. Maybe it's going to take, I don't know.
Us talking about
honestly
it.
Don't know. Yeah, well, talking about it.
We have to talk about it. We have to be honest about our symptoms. We have to put the mask down. We are so good at masking. We are really good at it, and we need to drop our mask. That's something that I'm working on, and I'm more honest about my symptoms. And people are like, I don't understand that, but I need you to know. I know you don't understand, but I need you to know that this is what I struggle with.
Yeah. And speaking of masking, like in real life, I don't even think people like know I even have the ADHD or that I mean like neurodivergent, because I mask so well to a point where it's like, if people just don't know, I don't see anything. I focus on work, and I just like, I know like what's the norm, so I kind of focus on that. Like it's like I don't have a choice. It's out there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Will I be locked up basically in a psych ward and opening up about being neurodivergent and different? I don't know.
Yeah. I think what it may end up, my thought is that one day there's going to be, well, I would hope one day that there'll be like a president of a country, like the United States maybe someday, or somewhere that's got a lot of push, and he's going to have ADHD.
It's probably Canada before America.
Yeah. But yeah, like it'd be nice to like for a leader of a country to stand up and say, I have ADHD and I'm gonna work hard to get mental support and understanding of ADHD and other disabilities and mental health understood and support, and more, like free healthcare or free mental health support or huge
free pharmacy. Maybe my concern is too expensive. I need it.
Yeah, that would be nice too. Like something has to trigger it to become more mainstream, because like I'll tell you that there was this thing in our political, the federal government not too long ago. There was this big deal made where the leading party, we have a minority government right now in Canada, and I'm sure you're aware, Mystic, and the NDP and the Liberals made a deal that the NDP would help keep the Liberals in power until the next election, but the only way they do is that they would help get things like dental care, and there's a few others. I think they wanted some of their agendas made into law and available to individuals. And I remember going, they want all this stuff. They want free dental care. They want free pharmacy, medical care covered, blah blah blah. But not one mention or even a thought about mental health.
Wow.
Nothing to do with mental health. And I'm sitting here going, seriously, like with this pandemic that we've had and the rising numbers of traumatic events and people coming in with trauma and learning that actually learning they have ADHD or some other mental illness that is affecting their lives and their ability to maintain a job or to feel like they want to keep going, and they don't, and they're not even, it's nothing. There's no mention of it whatsoever. And I'm like, oh my God, this is huge, especially right now. It could so help us, and they don't and it's not even a thing. And it's frustrating because
it's very
mental health really needs to be up there at the top, because there are more and more people, especially, and even in the future, there's going to be even more people who are going to suddenly go, something's not right. I'm willing to discuss it. I'm willing to go and find out. And it's not available, or it's not there. It's not ready enough. Like it's not.
You know what? It's interesting that you said that, because right now with COVID, there's a lot of people describing ADHD symptoms. So there's like a new onset of ADHD occurrences happening in people that had long COVID, and other things that impair certain parts of the brain that give you ADHD symptoms. I mean, like an illness is a part of, is kind of trauma to the body. Like,
100%, yeah.
And I was reading an article and I was like, that literally sounds like they got ADHD after getting long COVID. And then the guy responded, he was like, yeah, imagine for people with ADHD. Their ADHD symptoms get even more severe. I'm like, wow. I mean, the incidence just increased.
Yeah, I had COVID last week. Actually, I was 18th of September was when my symptoms started, and it took a week for it to get to its peak before I was the most effect. And I remember my energy levels were low, and my ability to focus and my brain fog was more apparent to me. And I know with ADHD, we do have a tendency to have brain fog, and if we don't get the right sleep or we don't eat right? And it was noticeable. And then when I went back to work, the first couple days, I did not feel like myself, even though I was, I was past it and everything. I just didn't mentally feel like myself. And it's only just been since I think yesterday that I'm actually I'm feeling more like who I am. And it's people with ADHD getting COVID are probably just suffering more than
because
neurotypical.
Because ADHD, isn't it like already a chemical imbalance? And like if you put COVID on top of it, like both of them kind of like interfere with the brain's functioning. I feel like that would definitely be a lot worse.
Yeah, absolutely. I know. I'm just grateful that I am vaccinated so that I didn't really have severe symptoms. But yeah, I think mental health is definitely, it's just too far down on the scale of importance right now. And my fear is that it's going to catch up and we're not going to be prepared. Because if either by not having enough psychologists or psychiatrists out there, or just not having the funding available, like people not being able to just go and say, okay, I can throw out $200, or if they want to get diagnosed, throwing out a couple grand. Like, not everybody can just sit and wait. It depends on where you're living. And
it also depends on your situation in terms of sitting and waiting. Like, some people can do that, and some people, it's maybe it could be already too late, because not being diagnosed can be literally interfering with someone's life to a point where they're losing contact with everyone and just who they are in general.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, there is a high there's high suicide rates in ADHD population, unfortunately.
Yeah. I think they have official stats that people who have ADHD have a shorter lifespan, and a lot of it is because they are, they're careless.
It's a lot of it,
and
we don't take care for our health and our impulsivity.
Yeah, they do things that they don't realize in the moment are extremely dangerous.
But it's not.
I could go on and on.
I feel like it's also sometimes we get frustrated and angry at our behaviors and speak away, and then we're like, why the hell did we do this? And then we get angry to a point of frustrated where we're like, okay, we just lost this person again. That's the 10th or whatever person giving up on us. And it's just we lose it. We don't want to be this person anymore.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
At least.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Wow. All right. Well, I think I'm going to wrap it up right there, guys. Well, thank you for coming on. It was great. I really enjoyed talking to you both, and Amber as well. It's too bad that she had to go early, but still, this was really good. I hope this was informative and educational for you and for our audience, both in the live and on the replays, and in the future as well. I am gonna do more. This isn't the only one. October is obviously ADHD Awareness Month, and I will be doing more of these and focusing on that. I just hope that eventually there'll be more people out there who will figure out what's going on with, ADHD, or maybe there's more, but still, got to talk about it in order to help them and make this more obvious and get more people help that they deserve.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you so much, Russ.
Thank you.
Absolutely. You're welcome. Yeah, you're welcome. I'm glad you came on. I've been wanting to get you on for quite a while.
First name is Russell, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for having
absolutely.
me.
You are very welcome. All right, everybody. That's it. I shall talk to you again later. Bye for now.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.